of character and integrity and the American dream.
Up next on TNN's This Week in Country Music, our tribute to Roy Rogers continues.
I have one of the first comic books that he ever did, which is in great shape.
Plus, Holly Dunn shows us her prized King of the Cowboys collection.
Well, that's the address where you can send donations in the late Roy Rogers memory. Now, if you would like to pass along your condolences to Dale and the rest of their family, you can send them an email to kingofthecowboys@royrogers.com.
As you can imagine, Roy's country music friends have had him on their minds all week. Many of them have talked with us about Roy, while others haven't been able to face cameras and instead faxed out statements. No matter which way they remembered him, you could see the love they had for the legend. Terry Bumgarner has more.
Westerns were my favorite thing to watch, and of course, you know, I love the John Waynes and Clint Eastwoods, but you know, somebody like Roy Rogers, who was a singer also, and me being, you know, in a musical family like I was, you know, there was a time that if I wanted to do a movie, I'd want to do it like Roy done. You know, hopefully one day I'll be as respected when I leave this earth as he's been.
For many, that says it all. This was a week when the word hero became synonymous with memories of Roy.
I look around and see people that are twice as old as me that well up with tears whenever you talk about Roy Rogers.
The most eloquent statement, perhaps, came from one of Roy's partners and pals, Clint Black. Clint wrote, "In true hero fashion, Roy left the way every member of his audience wants to go. In his sleep, after a lifetime's job well done, surrounded by loved ones, the sun setting on the end of the movie with more credits to roll than one screen will allow. Indeed, happy trails to you. With love, Clint Black." And Clint wasn't alone.
Well, I walked into my publisher's office yesterday and broke the news to my publisher, and she said, "Oh man, have I got something for you?" And she opened up her closet from her days at RCA and handed me a picture disc of Roy Rogers. And to me, it's just particularly going to be a great gift because I got it the day that he passed away.
From the time I can remember, I was in the Westerns. I was listening to all the movies, watching all the, going to town on Saturdays and seeing Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and all those guys. And they were my heroes back in those days, the singing cowboy, you know.
I found only two things that last till the end. One is your hero, the other's your friend.
Randy Travis also has fond memories of Roy, but his are a little more personal. In a statement released earlier this week, Randy writes, "One time when he had breakfast at our house, we were surprised when he put syrup on some of his pancakes and mayonnaise on others. He said in the Depression, you made the same food taste like as many different kinds of food as you could. That is where Roy came from." For Ricochet band member Junior Bryant, Roy's death hits close to home. Roy's grandson Dustin is one of Junior's best friends, so Junior also had a chance to meet the late cowboy.
He was a super person, and I'm not going to just miss him as a friend. I think the whole world's going to miss him as a human, and I think if the whole world had a little more Roy in it, we'd all be better off.
Dustin called his friend personally to tell him about Roy's death, and it was the King of the Cowboys' last words that seemed to bring the most comfort to Junior.
He called in his nurse and said it's been a long ride, and drifted off to sleep, and that was pretty much the end of it.
Junior was such a fan that he even has a Roy Rogers collection with a couple of items personally given to him by Roy's grandson.
But Junior's not the only country music collector of Roy mementos. Ironically, we finished putting together this next story Sunday, the day before Roy's death. Holly Dunn agreed to take us on a tour of her Roy Rogers collection for a story that had already been scheduled to air this weekend. Holly was such a big Roy fan that we thought it was still quite appropriate to go ahead and air the story. Here's our Gail Grasso.
This is an interesting space you have here.
It is, isn't it? This
I'll duck.
Yeah, don't whack your head.
I can't believe all the stuff you have.
It was worth the climb to see Holly Dunn's collection of Roy Rogers memorabilia.
I just started buying by the armfuls, and before I knew it, I had close to 600 pieces and growing.
'Cause when I saw you passing by, my heart went that away.
About 10 years ago, Holly found this pink bow tie, and the next thing she knew, she was scouring antique malls and flea markets to add to her collection.
Once the dealers kind of figure out you're an easy mark, you know. They'll hide things under their tables, and they see me coming, they'll bring out all the high-end items, add a zero to it, and say, would you like to buy this?
You have a little scene going on here.
Yeah, sometimes I come up here and change it around. But there's trouble in Mineral City today, Gail. This guy's fixing to get jumped. He has no idea. He's fixing to fall off his horse, and this guy's getting shot. And of course, Dale's standing over here by the trough going, howdy, y'all. She's doesn't know what's going on.
On those slow riding days, right? You
Yeah.
just come over here
Yes,
and play.
exactly. When I have way too much time on my hands right now, that's for sure. It's overwhelming to dust. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. It's like, ay, ay, ay.
You've got to figure there must be a good reason why Holly collects Roy and Dale merchandise.
You're making a mistake, Sheriff.
I think so too, Craig. At least be fair about it.
They were the first and maybe the last true heroes to me. And they handled their stardom and their celebrity so well. They did such, and still do, such great things for children and people, and they conducted their lives with such integrity and ideals, and they just stood for a time in my life and all our lives, I guess, where life was just simpler, seemed simpler anyway.
You better hasten, time is wasting, roll on Texas moon.
What started out as an emotional investment is now worth tens of thousands of dollars. Holly keeps track of every item in a book. And though each piece recalls a fond memory, nothing compares to the time when she sang to Roy in a television special.
I'm the one and only blue rose of Texas.
That was a cool moment, to be sitting there with him by a campfire singing to my hero was a great moment.
Now, Holly, not her publicist or her management, but Holly herself, personally returned our call Monday with a reaction to Roy's death.
She said, quote, heroes aren't supposed to die. They're supposed to live forever. He was truly a hero. This hurts. It's a personal loss for me. I feel sorry for the kids coming up today because they're not going to have the heroes like we did.
Stay tuned to TNN's This Week in Country Music for more of our salute to the King of the Cowboys.
He's just a great horse.
Including a guided tour of the Roy Rogers Museum.